So, today we're going to bleed some Shimano brakes. This bleed procedure works pretty well with the majority of brakes, really. The only difference really is the syringes, the syringe fitments, and use this bucket on the Shimanos. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is undo the lever just to level it out a bit. What I'll also do is just pull this cap off here, just because it gets full of oil if you get any drips. It's just easier to clean later on. So next, I'm going to take the bleed port screw out of here. As you take it out, just be careful not to lose that O-ring. Sometimes it just stays in there. It generally comes off on the end. Just push it back down, just make sure it stays safe. So I'm gonna gently thread the bucket in. It's only a plastic thread, so just be gentle with it. It doesn't need to be tight. I'm gonna take that out. I tend to just put a little bit of oil in there ready. Doesn't need to be much. And then we'll fill the syringe up. Right, so we fill the syringe. It doesn't need to be completely full. There's no point wasting too much fluid. Let's go with about 30 ml for this one. If you pull the fluid all the way in, and then grab a bit of kitchen roll and just gently with the nozzle at the top push the air out. Tend to push it most of the way up, and then you can put your lock on ready and then fill it up completely, just so it spurts. That's it. And she's ready to go on the caliper. Now we need to prepare the caliper. First thing we'll do is pull the pads out. So this could be a threaded pin or a split pin like this one. Just going to gently squeeze the split pin together. Now let's remove it. And then just work those out. Careful not to touch the braking surface with your fingers or your gloves or your hands or anything like that. It'll just contaminate it. Put them up there. What I will generally do now is just gently, from this side, with a plastic tyre lever, not metal or anything like that, no screwdrivers, just gently push those pistons right back in and get it ready. Once the pads are out, we'll drop the bleed block in. What I did with this one was just cut the fins off the outside, which means it's loads easier to just drop straight in the top rather than having to move the caliper bolts, these ones here. Doesn't need to be folded, just holding that one in. And then we'll also take the bleed nipple cover off as well. It's ready. So I will generally run the ring end of the spanner, just because it then stays on and it doesn't generally get too much in the way. As you put the syringe on, just gently push the fluid and then push her on. You'll generally get a bubble or two as it goes on. What you can do, just crack the bleed nipple. That'll push the pressure up and the bubble will rise as it gets to the top. You can then just squeeze gently and it'll be out of the way. Okay, now we're ready. So we open the bleed port, gently push fluid through. Don't forget to watch the bucket as well, just to make sure that you don't overfill it. Okay. And close it off as you get near the end. I can just hang there because this will hold it on. Don't knock it too hard though. As you can see, the fluid that's been pushed through is very black and murky. It's disgusting. You don't want to be putting that back into your brakes. That's probably why these ones didn't feel very good. Ideally it should be about that colour. So we're going to get rid of this one in the bucket and fill the syringe up and put some more in. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the black fluid because it's disgusting and that will be hindering your braking power for sure. Just going to get rid of it into an old bowl. Also just wipe out any residue left over. So we'll pop that back on, just going carefully, and then take the bung back out. Back on that one. And now we'll do the same thing again. Just open the bleed port and gently push the fluid up. This time you'll see it come through. Hopefully it's a slightly better colour this time. Up we go. Again, stopping just before we overfill or empty the syringe. And that's looking loads better. Okay, so now keeping the bleed port open on the caliper and gently holding the syringe up, we're just going to pump it back down into the syringe. This takes ages, so definitely going to trim the video here. As you pump, just give the lever a little flick backwards just to make sure this piston's fully opened and you are pumping it down properly. Just check the syringes, you'll see it pushing itself up. See the syringe move as I pump. Just keep going until there's not much left in the bucket and the syringe is nearly full again. You will see bubbles every now and then. As you get nearly full in the syringe and nearly empty in the bucket, just push it back through. So we'll cycle it up and down probably 2 to 3 times each. That agitates the fluid as it goes and gets rid of any bubbles either in the caliper or the lever. Once you cycle the fluid through 2 or 3 times and you're not getting many air bubbles come out anymore, you can lock off the bleed nipple on the caliper and just gently peel the syringe off and put it out of the way. That can now come off and just give it a bit of a wipe down. Make sure there's no oil residue left on there. What you can do is just twist up the corner of a piece of towel and then just poke it in the bleed nipple, which will draw out the residue of the oil that's left in there. Do that a couple of times just to make sure. And then Get some brake cleaner or isopropyl alcohol. Just give it a bit of a spray down just to make sure that there's nothing left contaminant wise. And that will dry itself up in a sec. Once you've finished at the caliper end, it's time to give the lever a bit of a bleed. Just make sure that you got all the air out. Do this by leaving a little bit of fluid in the bucket and just gently flicking the lever. Have a look down in there, just see, yeah, you're getting a couple of bubbles out every now and then. To agitate them, get a screwdriver or something that's not metal and not going to mark it, and just gently tap around the lever just to agitate any more bubbles. You're not getting much more there anymore. So once you've done that with it level, undo the lever slightly, drop it down to 45 degrees down, and do the same thing. You'll see more bubbles coming out every now and then. A couple more there. Again, just give it a tap, just try and agitate it. Nothing there, and then lift it up to somewhere around 45 degrees up, and just do the same. This gives the bubbles more chance to release and just get out of there. Let's just drop it back down to flat again. So I think we've got a pretty good bite on that now. I think we'll call that there. Let's just tighten the lever clamp a little bit more again. Then fit your bung in. Just gently unthread. Again, be sure not to lose your O-ring. Put that on its stand for a minute. What I'd like to do here, you'll see a few more bubbles appear. Just gently wipe them out of the way. And with a 2.5mm, pop your bleed port screw back on. Just rock it in gently. You'll get a little bit of leakage. You can wind that up in a sec. Wipe those down. Again, a little bit of brake cleaner just to make sure any contaminants are gone. And then we can pop the pads back in. You've got a lead brake. Okay, put the pads back in, same way you took them out. Got your bleed block out. First we'll give them a little bit of a clean with some brake cleaner. Make sure there's nothing in there that you don't want in there. If you've got an airline, it's a massive help here. That dries up very quickly then. Otherwise, give it a wipe, a bit of a blow, and then get your brake pads, slide them back in. Again, don't touch the braking surface itself. Put your pin back in. Don't forget to spread the split pin. That's what holds it in. And put your bleed nipple cover back on, stop all the dirt getting in. Get your front wheel back in, and you're good to go. And last but not least, don't forget to slide your cover back on, test your brake, and get out and ride.